What's up? Today I'm gonna be watching The Revenge of Sneako, the Moist Critical update, and let's see where this really ended up. I heard he apologized, but let's see what came of that.
Apologize to Moist Critical for showing a picture on stream of you and your girlfriend. That was not very Christ-like. I'm sorry.
Sneako, the man who's been at war with the internet for the last few weeks, has decided to release a video apologizing, and he called this video
I love the new Sneako. You can't just up and change like that, man. You can't just like think that people are gonna believe you right off the bat. You gotta prove it, man.
"Oh, I love the new Sneako," referencing of course the classic Kanye West song. The point of this video is to apologise and justify acting the way that he did, though of course in Sneako fashion, he didn't really apologise and instead
Saw that coming.
doubled down on what he's apologising for, and then of course pushed his course on how to make money online like a true guru. This video is completely tone deaf and misses the entire point of why all this happened in the first place.
3 things you can't say on YouTube but you could say on Rumble. The COVID vaccine doesn't. The 2020 election was against Trump, and billionaire pedophiles use wokeness to keep you depressed and poor.
Hopefully you noticed the
Dear God, he is gone, man. Like most people down that rabbit hole are.
Kanye West 2024 merch sitting in the background, by the way. That's of course always
What, like, foreshadowing? Or what, I don't know, whatever that would be.
the classic.
Around 3 years ago, when I was 21 years old, I went to a swinger party with one of my girlfriends and joked about how traumatizing it was on a podcast. I was cheating on her a lot, and I felt bad, and I thought it would make us even if we swapped with a couple. I don't do it anymore. I don't recommend it. And
Sure you don't, Sneako. You sure you don't.
And seeing how many people call me a cuck for what I thought was a funny story, you should probably not do the
I don't know, it doesn't sound funny to me, man.
same.
I'm like feeling traumatic thoughts, like seeing her. I think you should go through that trauma.
No,
I think
what?
everyone should go through
Why
that.
you say that?
So later on, after the whole traumatic hotel incident,
You're opening up more to this.
I'm less traumatized now. Yeah.
So apparently this was a joke he kept telling with less laughs for months after the fact and very clearly visibly
The only one laughing is you, Sneako.
upset about. Also, Sneako seems to think that letting other men have sex with your girlfriend in front of you is what the quote woke mind virus is pushing.
I tried the lifestyle that the woke mind virus pushes, and it ends
What, Sneako? What? Is this the woke mind virus? Is that what you think that is?
up being what the woke YouTubers try to shame me for. Kind of ironic.
Whatever the fuck the woke mind virus even means in the first place. But I've never heard anyone advocate for getting cooked as being part of a woke anything.
That must mean 2 things. 1, social media breeds negativity, and 2, the biggest haters just don't go outside.
Sneako is actually right here. Social media does breed negativity, and he's been part of that now for over a year, and still is a part of it in this video since he just sneak jabs people on their looks and lifestyle, despite claiming he's done with that. What's interesting is
Right, like, doesn't he still have a collage somewhere of all the people that have said bad things about him or things he disagrees with?
using the fact nobody comes up and insults him in public as a gotcha for anyone disagreeing with him is really silly. Most people voice opinions online they otherwise wouldn't voice in person. That's the truth for everyone and everything. Most people are just going to be polite in real life. They're not going to
Right, a lot of people do avoid confrontation.
come up to you and just start, talking shit. Most people separate social media from reality. A lot of people see a famous person and get a picture or just say what's up, even if they don't like them. That doesn't mean everyone you meet agrees with you, and it also doesn't mean everyone who disagrees with you is hiding like a social recluse.
I was depressed and broke. I was out of shape. I was gaming. I was watching porn. I got high every single day. I was miserable.
Now, there's a lot of stuff to clown Sneako for. This isn't one of them. Good for you, Sneako. I'm being serious here. Some people love their life, sitting around smoking weed all day, playing video games and whacking off. That's their shit. And they shouldn't change it just because it wasn't right for you. You are not the arbiter, Sneako, of what is a
Right.
good life.
You don't know what's good? That sounds like a good time to me, Sneako.
You can say this is how I live my life and I don't agree with that. But to act as if anyone who lives differently is wrong is just completely missing any nuance in life at all, which is something you seem to struggle with. And again, I will say if you were depressed and you feel happier and healthier now, that's great, sincerely. There is great advice here for anyone who is in a similar situation, but good advice doesn't need to come with preaching or the other conspiracy nonsense or self-help courses that you
Exactly. You don't need to put people down to still send a good message.
back onto the side like a fucking grifter. If anyone's unhappy in life, make a change, little by little. Do what you can, seek therapy if you can afford it, talk to people, exercise, try your best to change what it is that's making your life worse. This is all true. The issue with this coming from you is the next part.
I don't say this to flex, but to
You know what he's gonna say next. It's gonna flex.
show you that there's an option. Look at the lives of anyone making a hit piece video on Sneako, and look at the life that I am currently living in the present. Genuinely, which one would you rather live?
Again, Sneako
So he apologizes to Moist Critical, and then again throws a jab at Moist Critical.
goes right, there is an option. The problem is Sneako's so absorbed in his own narcissism that yet again he can't uncouple himself from the idea that his is the only way to live life, and anyone living otherwise has a shit life that they must hate or only sell to people because it's in their best interest to do so.
I don't dislike him. He's just the perfect example of a popular YouTuber that's brainwashed. I used to
What? He is literally the most
watch his videos when
he's literally one of my favorite YouTubers because he is a very well speak. He's really well spoken, and wow, that is the worst take I've ever heard.
I was a teenager, just like a lot of my other haters, and today he's everything that I don't want to be when I'm 30 years old. When I'm his age, I don't want to be playing children's video games, playing with dildos for content, and using Satanism to be edgy. I don't want to drop the
That's that's Satanism. Oh my god.
Antichrist for fun. What is this? Please someone tell
What is this? He's genuinely scared. That's hilarious.
me what they enjoy about this.
Begs me quick, got me screaming, rides my dick.
This is just Charlie
It was just him living his life, trying to be funny.
living the life he wants, doing what he wants to do, entertaining people with his sense of humour. That isn't being brainwashed, and it's ironic that Sneako of all people uses the term brainwashed when this was Sneako discovering Andrew Tate the first time.
Alright, bro, like, as accomplished I am with the genetic gifts of a man and the physical superiority of my body. So why are you, like, bro, you're wearing a shiny fucking bomber gold jacket with open and sunglasses on? You look like a video game character. You look like what a 12-year-old would pick as his GTA character. Alright, there's self-help for men, and then there's also just jerking yourself off to other men.
And then within a few months, Sneako was
Then he looks just like him a few months later.
copying every word Tate uses, dressing exactly like him, wearing shades indoors like him, selling courses like him, going where he goes, living life the way that he lives, and generally repeating the exact same 4 words like he's fucking Woody from Toy Story. Except when you pull Sneako's string, it just says NPC, Soy Boy, Bot, and The Matrix.
Like, it doesn't win you, it's not an automatic ticket to a win in an argument.
If being yourself on the internet like Charlie is being brainwashed, then what the fuck is this?
I know you're tired of hearing the same bot takes on YouTube and Twitch, not being able to say the words that we really want to say, and not being able to talk about the opinions that we really want to talk about. Big Tech is censoring all of us. The Matrix is attacking in real time.
Sneako went
He has gone off in the deep end in the wacko zone.
from one day talking about how women want to be charmed and have a good time, completely disagreeing with Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate, to just repeating everything his new friends say. Now, I'm not sure if Sneako saw this as a way to fast track his life and become a millionaire as quickly as possible, as his life did genuinely blow up and start earning 6 figures a month doing this nonsense, where previously he'd been grinding for years earning nowhere close to this. Or whether or not Sneako genuinely believes in everything he's saying. Either way though, it is ironic to say other people are brainwashed when his entire life changed in a complete 180.
That is such a good point. I don't really know who he is, but it seems like when this Andrew Tate guy came around, he literally became his clone.
breakneck.
What does Moist Critical stand for? What does he believe in? Do you know? I don't.
Again, the tone-deaf nature of this is unreal. So Charlie's brainwashed for doing what he wants to do the way that he wants to do it, copying nobody and being himself. And Sneako doesn't know what he stands for. Yet Sneako changed every single facet of his existence within a 3-month period to copy other men, to buy into a different ideology? How do you claim to stand for anything when you threw away your entire personality and worldview overnight? This is just so insanely ironic.
Fresh knows he's an average looking guy, but he's known all over Miami as a playboy. Moist Critical just can't comprehend that somebody like Fresh, who's the same age and on the same level of attractiveness,
Oh my god. He's still defending the guy who said he got 1,000 bitches, and then Moist Critical's like, I doubt you can even get one. I mean, anyone that says they've had 1,000 bitches immediately loses credit with me, but I don't know. I mean, that's just me.
can be with beautiful women because instead of networking, working hard, and looking fresh, he's playing with dildos and video games.
Again, Sneako picking just the worst target here and also just continuing to display he hasn't learned or changed and he's just apologising to help people stop saying mean things about him.
I think most of us have had some
You got bullied? I'm a victim.
You are passionate
This is just so obnoxious.
about something.
Bring bullying back. Bullying is necessary, or else you turn into this dude.
To act like Charlie couldn't get women if he wanted to is probably the biggest cope on the planet, which is hilarious when you're also talking about people brainwashing their audience to push a narrative. The dude's a multimillionaire who's going to continue amassing wealth, isn't even remotely unattractive, he's ripped, has over 10 million subscribers based purely on his personality, as his videos don't have any good production quality, and somehow you're yet again going after his ability to get women. Which is all hilarious when you consider you repeatedly go on podcasts where you talk about high value men and having a ton of social media clout and money means you can get any woman you want and you can have as many of them as you want at the same time, because in your worldview that's all women want, and yet you're giving
Right.
an example of a very successful, attractive man that has a ton of money not being able to do it. It's real weird.
For the young men watching, is that the life you want to live at 30 years old?
I mean, kinda, yeah. I mean, he's kind of someone I look up to. Shit.
Yeah, you're right. Rich, healthy, attractive, capable of going anywhere, anytime, live an incredible lifestyle while doing so, having great lifelong friends, a loving long-term girlfriend, and wake up every day capable of pursuing any hobby he wants and monetize it to millions of people. No, Sneako, nobody wants that. You are completely right. I guess we should buy your course to learn why that's actually a very bad life.
Just at a call
Like, anyone that even gives you money at, like, they're just, I would never be that stupid. Like, I'd rather,
today for an hour and talked to everybody, gave a lesson about making money online.
This part, Sneako uses the most recent, or I guess depending on when this video comes out, maybe not the most recent school in America to push the rest of his agenda.
In Japan, there is no wokeness, there is no LGBT trans nonsense,
what do you mean? It exists everywhere, like it or not.
and society is civilized. Somebody spills over their bag and everybody comes to help them out because they see each other as extended family. There's no culture war. There is a life outside of the woke degeneracy, and that's why I will continue to defend the movie Cuties until Moist Critical
What? What is what does Japanese people helping each other have to do with basically child pornography? What?
decides to debate me about it.
Oh, Sneako, please, my brother. You're actually right here for totally the wrong reasons. You're right, there's no public us versus them on this topic that gets into any kind of spotlight, but not because there are just no trans or gay people, my guy. It's because Japan is a culture built, as you rightly pointed out, on the collective being strong. They are outwardly polite to a fault and incredibly respect-driven. There are a ton of gay and trans people, though, which have more rights than many Western countries. There's pride rallies going on for over a decade. How can you begin to twist an entire country in their view to suit your fucking stupid narrative? It's not that trans and gay people don't exist in Japan. What are you talking about? And this isn't to say Japan still doesn't have issues regarding acceptance on a societal or political level.
There is no wokeness, there is no LGBT trans nonsense, and society is civilized.
What are you talking about?
I just don't understand how you can be so unaware of everything around you that you don't see that the solution is in what you're presenting and you're just using it in the completely wrong way. You are literally fighting the culture war by saying this.
And that's why I will continue to defend the movie Cuties until Moist Critical decides to debate me about it. Nobody who hates the movie Cuties has seen it. It's about an Islamic family that moves from West Africa to France, a woke country that's literally on fire right now, and the daughter of the family
A woke country that's on fire. That's a really bad take.
Family gets
Oh my
corrupted by
God.
TikTok and starts dancing provocatively and leaves her Islamic values behind.
Then he, of course, goes on record defending cuties again, because of course he does. I'm skipping this part because I just don't want to engage with this at all.
I started YouTube at 11 years old, and following the trends of social media before God led me to complete degeneracy. But rejecting these values, I have found a new direction, purpose, and meaning for my life. A lot of the hatred is justified. I should not have been attacking the people in the soy boy collage as much as I was, but I held a lot of resentment because they actively tried to get me
Oh my God. Is this considered even an apology?
banned on YouTube. They encouraged their followers to go and report my page. They celebrated when I was canceled for telling the truth.
Now, let me just say, I fucking love that you call this the soy boy collage, Sneako, but again, you have advocated for certain people to not have rights, and therefore they shouldn't even exist. So the fact you're upset at people saying you should get banned on a single social media platform yet again shows you have zero self-awareness and no logical consistency at all. Perhaps if you didn't heel turn to a thoroughly unlikable and hateful person who attacked these people constantly, they wouldn't have assisted in getting you banned. And by the way, it wasn't for
Telling the truth.
it was for doing exactly what you've just explained throughout this apology video, for attacking people and saying these things.
So the only option now is to be a force for good. And let's be honest,
A force for good. What? Like, everything he said makes me want to roll my eyes to the front of my head.
there is a clear pattern with the people that hate me. I don't say it to be cocky, but I am tall, I'm good looking, and I'm successful. This is why the number one criticism is wannabe alpha male Sneako. Oh, this alpha male. It's rooted in jealousy and the idea that masculinity is a bad thing. I don't think I'm an alpha male. I've never once called myself that. I promote the ideas of masculinity because it is so desperately needed right now.
I can tell you with complete sincerity from me to you, people are not saying these things because they're jealous of you. You can't use your ego and narcissism to explain away the opinions of a large number of people by saying they're just jealous. Well, I mean, you can because you just did.
That's literally what out of the Trump handbook. They're just mad. They're just communist socialists.
But you're wrong. People just fundamentally disagree with you and how you behave. They didn't before, of course, and many of the people who are doing now would have liked you if you were still that person. You're just currently suffering from the consequences of your actions, and your actions are the only things that can change that again. Truly, if you do turn another leaf, most of the people you're talking about here would give you the courtesy of another chance. I know I would.
I'm officially retiring the soy boy image. I forgive everybody who advocated for my cancellation or made documentaries about me, and I'm ditching my attacking style of streaming. And I apologize to Moist Critical for showing a picture on stream of you and your girlfriend. That was not very Christ-like. I'm sorry.
That's the only thing you're apologizing for? Like, that really doesn't cancel out what you just said. This is the same video.
And that's it. That's the apology, which was full of cutting to images mocking other people when discussing masculinity. Again, just flying in the face of saying he wouldn't be attacking people anymore like this. He can't even make an I've changed apology video and remain consistent within it. But what's even funnier is that after this shit went live, he expected all big content creators to literally drop to their knees and immediately prostrate at the altar of Sneako. Instead, they didn't, and he took to Discord yet again to just start going off. Not everyone's hooked on Sneako's life to the point where they would have even known this release. They don't use Rumble, the Shadow Realm platform, and they probably don't follow you on Twitter, and if they do, they probably muted you because you just posted.
Okay, so apparently Moist Critical responded to him, so let's check that out. And he talked to Sneako. Let's see this video real quick.
I know it's April 1st, but I'm not foolin'. The title is not a joke. I talked to Sneako. And I gotta be honest, I had butterflies in my tummy. I was more excited to talk to him than I would be to talk to Santa.
I bet you were chomping at the bit. I would be. He sounds like such an idiot. Like, oh, I got a piece of my mind I would want to give him too.
Claus. Now, I know this will be coming as a shock to a lot of you, a bit of a jump scare, so I hope you're sitting down so it doesn't knock you off your feet. Sneako and I have not been on the best of terms recently. We've tried our best to keep it a secret and handle it behind closed doors, but that this was some kind of one-party consent thing where I pulled the wool over his eyes and pulled his fucking pants down to surprise him with a recording. He had actually asked me to, and I want to show you how this went, because it was actually a very interesting conversation we had. I want to tell you how we got there. It's because last night I noticed Sneako was raving about cuties on Twitter yet again, talking about how much he loves it and how he'll
Like, how can you defend that? Like, what is this about? What about this is woke culture?
always defend it, but then said that I wouldn't debate him on it. And this little nugget of cringe had me scratching the hair on my chin, confused. I wouldn't debate you on it. I would actually love to hear your side of things on how you could possibly excuse the blatant sexualization of the child actresses in the film. Now, I'm not a debater. I actually am not a fan of debates in general. I prefer just general conversations as opposed to these like gotcha and leading questions and traps and shit. I think that's not very conducive to actual understanding of different sides of arguments. So I don't debate, but I was very willing to have this conversation with Sneako, and I reached out to talk to him, and he was more than willing to talk about it. So we did. We talked about cuties and even talked about all of our general grievances with each other. And this was a very different situations, and I didn't expect that. And I'm very appreciative of that pleasant surprise as well, because I went into this with pretty low expectations, but after finishing our talk, I'm actually pretty curious to see where Sneako goes next, because, like I mentioned, there are some things that he just fully admitted, like maybe he was guilty of doing similar things that he criticized others for, and that he was going to be repurposing his message and changing things around to make it more conducive to positivity. So overall, the whole conversation went in a totally different direction than I expected. Of course, he's still very passionate about some things, and we still fought on quite a few things, and the reality is there's just a lot of things that I don't see eye to eye to him on with some of the things he talks about. But overall, I really walked away with a very different impression of Sneako from this. Now, I know I'm blue-balling you here, but one more thing that I think is important to mention, he has said that he's wanted to debate me over the last 2 weeks here. He even made this big hullabaloo on Twitter about how I ducked a debate with him on Aiden Ross' stream. Even though he had not replied to any of my DMs at that point, there was no debate scheduled between him and I. So that was just a blatant lie. I think he was just joking around about it, and it missed the mark because people actually thought that I was avoiding him. But he's not wrong in the fact that I really didn't want to have a conversation with him over the last 2 weeks.
I mean, why would you at the same time?
Because all of it was extremely geared towards hurt feelings. At least that's how I interpreted a lot of his statements. It seemed to focus more on me saying, P.U., you stink, and him taking it as, he's canceling me. There's not a whole lot of productive conversation that can come from that with me just explaining over and over again that I'm just insulting you, and that's the simple brass tacks of it. But over the last 48 hours, it really does feel like he's had this come to Jesus moment where he's recognized that I was never canceling him. I was making fun of him. He even issued an apology about bringing up my girlfriend and stuff like that, and has recognized that he has been off the mark on a lot of things recently as well. He also, apologized for being a cuck, which was a wild thing. He talked about how
I'm sorry. It's such a cuck thing to do, apologizing for being a cuck. Like, oh my god.
how cuckoldry was a mistake. So it looks like he was never okay with it, even though for a time he did say everyone should try it. It looks like he's changed his perspective on that and now looks back on it with a lot of
Maybe not everyone should try it. Maybe that was a mistake.
regret, which isn't surprising since those insults were not some of his favorite to keep hearing. So that's not really a discussion we had. I think and have always said, whatever happens between consenting adults in the bedroom is fine. As long as no one's getting fucking hurt, there's no victims, it's consenting adults, you're good to do whatever makes you happiest. The reason I always talked about the cuckoldry is one, because fucking hilarious that a lot of his beliefs now go very much against his past of being
Like, how are you gonna act like the ultimate alpha male when that happens?
open to watching his girl get fucked in front of him by multiple men on a couple occasions. And two, it was illustrating a bit of ridiculousness with him being the moral authority on healthy relationships when he himself was in a very confusing one that he wasn't proud of, yet still preaching that people should do it anyway. That was the whole point behind it. I wasn't trying to kink shame like a lot of people started accusing me of. If you want to be a cuckold, then be a proud one and be okay.
Why does he have to explain this in the grave detail? Like, this is where society has ended up.
With it and comfortable in your own skin about it. So, it has seemed like he's been more receptive to real talk, and that's what we had. So let me go ahead and show you now. The first thing we talked about was cuties.
This discussion with you about cuties since I dropped that video back in 2020.
How time flies, man. Well, better late than never.
So, have you seen the movie?
Yeah, so you mentioned you saw my video, so you know I didn't finish the movie. I physically couldn't. I found it just to be completely repulsive.
You finished the movie, right? Like, you have to see the movie, man. You have to. I'm raving about it. Like, you might think it's like a little pedophile, but I'm telling you.
You've seen a lot of other movies that have repulsed you before. I watch horror movies. I watch movies that are provocative quite a bit.
Yeah, but this is something I feel isn't being recognized. There's a difference between being repulsed by fiction, which is like horror movies, that's not real, and being repulsed because there's real children doing sexual things. You can't fake that. The actresses were 11 to 13 years old. They were twerking. There was some very gross scenes in there, and like the cameras would zoom in on their chest and their ass and their crotch. Like, that's a very different kind of repulsed.
That's what we agree on. I don't agree that those scenes are good. I don't agree with the sexualization of children. I defend the movie because I defend the morality of the movie. And I think
the morality of the movie. There is no morality. What?
Most people that were disgusted have seen those clips or didn't watch the whole movie like you. So that movie was taken out of context quite a bit. People don't really see the moral of the movie, which is defending Islamic values and also pointing out the very real problem that young girls have going on social media and doing these dances. I agree that it's disgusting. I agree that those scenes are repulsive, but I think you could be repulsed by TikTok and pretty much what young girls are doing on social media every single day as well. I think that people outraged at that film should also be outraged at everything that girls are doing now on Instagram, TikTok, and all these apps.
Well, see, but here's the thing. So let's break it down to the very bare essentials. Can children consent?
Can children consent? No, they can't. We agree.
So then
why would you even defend this?
Why do you think it's excusable to exploit them after having them sign up for this film? If you admit they can't consent, how can they possibly give the okay to be shaking their ass and having a camera all up in their shit while they're doing sexual things, like that scene where she takes a picture of her vagina, the scene where they're doing literal, like, toying around with cam sites, like, that's very different. Like, no one is disputing the message, right?
Like, I think it's pretty disgusting. Like, who gives a fuck what the message is if the message is literally being hypocritical as hell?
Right.
I agree with the intention of the movie. I don't think that those scenes are good. That's what we completely agree on. But I think that was an important movie to point out how many people get sucked into this world. I think that was needed. That movie was needed to be made. And I also don't think that movie encouraged pedophiles to go and incite and look at these girls. I think that they're more likely to go on TikTok and find girls that they're attracted to. I don't think that this really attracted people to these girls.
Well, it's not like I'm here arguing that this movie created pedophiles, right? But what it did is it delivered a film that they would watch for totally different reasons than the message. Again, the message isn't something that I or pretty much anyone has an issue with. The message is, like you mentioned, the social media poisoning them, making them do the sexual things, which is a problem. But this movie contributes to it since it still used real children to sexualize them, to showcase it. That's the issue. You didn't need it to be children.
I don't think it contributes to it, because when you see girls doing this on TikTok, they don't know.
I don't see girls doing it on TikTok, though, is the thing, right? The only people that would are going to be the pedophiles. They would go and search that out. This movie was advertised on Netflix.
No, that's not true. Every time, I don't have TikTok on my phone, but once in a while, before I was banned, I would go on there, and the first 3 videos would be the same thing that you see on Cuties. And that's why I uninstalled the app. That's why I refuse to have it on my phone, because it's directing you to those images.
Which is a problem. I'm not disagreeing that's a problem, but that doesn't make this film.
We agree, but we just disagree that I think the movie was important to point out a flaw. Personally, I never empathized with girls being directed to that site before I saw that movie. That really made me understand what it's like to be a girl and grow up in that age.
I think we're getting. Yes, we agree that it is.
He's totally missing the mark on why it's not okay though. Like they can totally do that message without having them basically do child pornography. Like it's a clear and cut thing. Like he just doesn't understand why they disagree. He's like blows my mind.
Disgusting, but you are excusing it because you believe it highlights a very real issue, which it does, but it contributes to that issue by using children. They didn't have to use kids. You recognize that, right? They could have used...
They didn't have to use kids. But I also look at the director and I look at the moral of the movie, and I don't think that it was anything unsafe, and I don't think that the director had any bad intentions making it. So maybe it shouldn't have been as sexualized, but I defend the morality of the movie, and I also defend the effect that it had on me. When I watched that made me have a new perspective.
But do you see why that's kind of... Jesus, sorry, that was my cat. Do you see why that's kind of concerning to hear, though? Because in the time that I watched that film, there were unreal amounts of sexual scenes. In fact, the majority of the movie was them doing like the dance routines where they're smacking each other's ass, zoomed in on them shaking their ass in the camera. There's that scene where a security guard's like, "What are you girls doing here?" And they're like, "We're dancers." He's like, "Prove it." So they start twerking for him, and he's like, "Oh, great, get in here." Like
I love to see what he says next to this. I really can't wait.
That is a problem, no matter how you spin it. Again, the message is fine. There was never anything wrong with the message, and maybe the intention of the director was...
How would you tell the director to convey the message in a different way?
You would just not use children. You could deliver the same message and you don't use children. The problem is
I don't think it would be effective. I don't think it would be as effective.
What do you mean? Like, why does it have to be children? We could do this without putting children in harm's way. Like, it's simple.
Fortunate that it's misinterpreted, but you couldn't be able to have that effect and show how provocative and how dangerous it is without using kids.
Yeah,
of course, the shots probably...
You can make adults look like kids. You can do anything besides use actual children.
It did not need to be that bad, but when I watched that, I was absolutely disgusted, and like I said, it changed my perspective. And what I'm surprised about is that you are against wokeness, because everything that your content is about, it doesn't seem like you've ever directed any energy towards how dangerous wokeness can be, which is exactly what that movie's about. It's saying how important Islamic values are in the face of wokeness. It's about a Western African family, Islamic. They go to France, a completely woke country that's now being burned alive, and women are running around topless. Wokeness has consumed France, and it's pointing out a proper solution to this problem, which is embracing Islamic values.
Who was the director of the film? Do you know?
Her name is Maminu Doucouré. Maminu Doucouré, I think that's her name. She's a Western African woman, and she moved to France. So I imagine that she had a very similar experience, and she was trying to portray what it was like growing up.
So the message of the movie is about social media, and almost exclusively. She directed the film based on seeing some children in a neighborhood doing sexual dances and wondering, how did it get to that point? This isn't okay. So the movie was supposed to be about how does a child get to that point, and it's about how social media is poisoning them, and they're constantly comparing themselves. They're seeing these things, so they're putting on makeup and they're doing sexual shit, and they never really understand why or the consequences of it. It's not a critique on wokeness, though. Of course, anything in the art field you can derive your own meaning from. I recognize that almost everything you encounter in life you tie back to either cancellation or wokeness. But in this film in particular, this is a movie I really feel conflicts hard with your ideology. Under no circumstances should children be sexualized, is where I stand. Do you disagree?
He disagrees. Like, the fact that he has to even think for a second about this.
There's a lot of things in movies, like I don't agree with incest in Star Wars, but Star Wars has incest scenes. I don't agree
but that's
with
not
incest, but
so that's like dodging on the question. It's like
it's portrayed.
It's not real incest, though. This is real children being sexualized. It's not fake. These are 11...
I agree. But I'm defending the point of the movie.
You can defend the point of the movie but you can still condemn the movie itself. The point can stand on its own 2 feet, right? Like, there is a problem, which you recognize, with kids being sexualized, in specific on TikTok. That is a problem in and of itself. But you can still condemn this film for contributing to the thing it's supposed to speak out against, which is sexualizing children, which you have admitted it does. And it didn't need to, like you said. That is the problem.
Maybe they shouldn't have used child actors, but I agree with the point of the movie. But how do you think that the point could have been conveyed in a better way? You think should they have used 18-year-olds to play 11-year-olds?
That's exactly what most movies have done for a long time. A quick example is The Last of Us using Bella Ramsey to portray a 14, 15-year-old. Like, you can do that, and that's a lot more acceptable because there is no longer a victim. Like you'd said, children can't consent. These kids could never fully consent to being sexualized in this film like this on the big screen.
I would argue that when they use 30-year-olds and 27-year-olds to play high schoolers, like in Euphoria and like in 13 Reasons Why, it actually sexualizes kids more because we start to mature.
What? So you're saying to use actual kids because using adults sexualizes kids more because it makes them lust after
High schoolers, and we think of them in a different way. People in their 30s and their late 20s get addicted to Euphoria, and they have ideas, and they start romanticizing teenagers in a different way because they don't use actors in that way, and they make them look more mature.
That's a completely separate conversation you can make arguments for, but that doesn't work here because it sexualizes already real children, right? So I think you're getting hung up on like the what ifs and like whataboutisms on other sides, but the core doesn't change. So let me give you an example. It is realistic to use kids for the message, right? Because it's about kids. Well, what if the child...
They're just gonna argue about cuties for a solid minute here. I'm gonna skip forward, man.
Turns these girls into sexual objects at a young age and be more angry at that. That is the real issue. That is the bigger problem at large.
They do, though. It's not mutually exclusive, like where it's one or the other.
Do they? Do you?
Do I what? Talk about the problem?
Do you direct that anger? I see you.
Now, from here, we started branching off into other conversational topics, but I do want to go ahead and give a little wrap up here. After talking to him about it, it really feels like he sticks to his guns just out of pure stubbornness because he's defended it for so long. He's unwilling to forfeit on the point, even though he can clearly recognize that the sexualization of children is a bad thing. And since the movie sexualizes children, it is full stop a bad thing. He can't separate the message and applaud the message without applauding the whole film, which is a problem. He repeatedly calls it his favorite movie and how important it is, but he's only referring to the intentions with the message, and the message is fine, but the film itself is not fine. It wanted to speak out against social media.
Oh yeah, this is basically what we already went through. Is this I'm going back to it?
Popular on social media, but I don't see you ever directed at the problem. Do you agree that wokeness is one of the biggest problems that corrupts kids nowadays?
Define wokeness.
Wokeness is the liberal ideology, is feelings over facts. I identify this way because I feel like it is.
So he can't even describe what he's always freaking talking about.
There's no gender, nothing matters. I do as I want. Everything that's promoted on social media.
Do you realize half of what you just described is how you've lived your life for the last year? Like feelings over facts, for example. You champion bullying. You think bullying needs to come back. I have never canceled you. Can you recognize that? I have actually always spoke out against deplatforming, if you've ever noticed. I spoke out against it.
No, but you were also disingenuous. When I called out the Soy Boy collage, you were like, these people just hurt my feelings. Most of those people actively advocated
one
for my
person.
Cancellation.
Nick is not green is the only person.
True. That's not true. Ethan Klein celebrated and clapped when I was banned and said, good, finally this misogynist is banned. What
But Ethan Klein is not Charlie.
happens on the internet, I understand. It's good to have back and forth. Bullying is good because it makes you have to develop your character in a different way. That's not why I was upset. I was upset because a lot of these people were secretly happy or secretly hoping that I was going to get banned because they disagree with my ideology.
But then why am I on that list when I've only ever spoke out against deplatforming? That seems like I'm there because I hurt your feelings.
You didn't hurt my feelings. I thought it was funny because you do look like the rest of them.
I don't understand how, but we're not here to get into the nitty gritty, I guess. Now, after talking to Sneako, it became clear that he really lives his life fearful of wokeness. He is constantly haunted by the woke boogeyman, like he's trapped in Luigi's mansion, but every ghost is woke.
Somebody stop. We got the woke mob coming. Like, Jesus Christ, these people live in delusion. And then, then they end up storming the Capitol with hella guns and shit. And it's like...
It's one of those things where every topic we started talking about always tied back to either cancellation or wokeness, which I think is pretty sad to be in that state of, I guess, unease, where he's always feeling as though woke is breathing down his neck. It's haunting his dreams like Freddy Krueger. But I'm going to get into that just a little bit more in a second. I do want to mention that collage where he's claiming it's not people that hurt his feelings, it's people that like advocated for his cancellation and shit, which again, I never did. I have only ever made fun of him and insulted him. Or made fun of one of his friends that he felt the need to pick up the the White Knight's armor to defend the honor of. So I, under no circumstances, fit any of his definitions there, except for he thinks I look like the rest of the people there, which I have still not to this day seen a single living, breathing human being that has said there is similarity between anyone on that collage. Fucking 30 people on that collage, and there is no similarity amongst any of them. All types of different backgrounds, faces, hair, everything, beliefs. It's not even fucking close. I don't know what he's seeing.
That is a good point. Literally, people have came from all backgrounds and walks of life to agree that he just sucks. Let's skip through here. What did he say next?
That doesn't mean that I think I am an alpha male.
I've never called you an alpha male. You're
literally the only one that calls yourself that.
You're
that
talking to someone.
Though. You've called my friends that. You've called Fresh and Fit that, and you haven't.
They call them. You are really hung up on fighting for the honor of Fresh and Fit. What I did was exactly what you preach. I made fun of him. Calling him a virgin is a joke. Do I think he's actually a virgin? Probably not. And it's not even a good joke. Like, that's the laziest joke of all time, which is why it wasn't like the crux of it. I just made it as a throwaway statement in the middle of a rant about his ridiculous story. This is something that clearly weighs heavy on the mind of Sneako, where I insulted his friend, and my god, he has not let that go. This has become like his Vietnam, because it really seems to have taken a big toll on his psyche. He believes I owe a retraction and apology for making fun of him and calling out his story. And he says that I was wrong about all of it, even though, I'll play the clip in a moment, further into our conversation, he also admits he doesn't know if he actually fucked the 3 women that he claimed he did. Nobody knows. The story itself is outrageous. What they proved is he had DMs, like a conversation with the NBA player, but that doesn't corroborate the whole story. There is no apology or retraction necessary. It is still such a fucking crazy story he told that probably wouldn't even happen in the most obscure Brazzers porno ever.
Because you don't correct your mistakes. You were wrong about Fresh and Fit. You were wrong about Andrew Tate. And you were wrong about the movie.
He was never wrong. Like, you're wrong. Like,
The cuties.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you tied it back to cuties, but before we get back to that, how am I feel like I'm one of the very few people on the internet who corrects himself. Whenever I make a mistake, I do go and make a clarification. For example, I got something wrong with a content creator holding a stand-up competition that was absolute dog shit, and then someone came there and made fun of him, and I didn't know the full context. Once I got the full context, I went back and made a follow-up video to explain it in more depth with more clarity. I always do that. With Fresh and Fit, you really hung up on this idea that he fucked 3 women that night after meeting an NBA player at a bar, and they exchanged Instagram information, and it turns out they were Eskimo bros with the same girl's pussy. Like, it's an outrageous story. Now, whether or not it's true, you haven't proved it either. Were you there watching him fuck? Were you cheering him on?
He verified it. He showed the DMs with the basketball player. They did the whole podcast verifying the story.
The DMs.
You didn't correct it. Okay, so you didn't correct that. They did verify the story. You didn't correct it.
Did they have the basketball player? Did they have the basketball player and the 3 girls he fucked come on and be like, oh my god, he absolutely plowed the shit out of me. It was the best sex of my life. Did he have...
That would never happen, but he did show the DMs with the basketball player verifying the story and that he did go to the party. Whether or not you want to believe he was with 3 women, I wasn't there either. I guess we're never going to know. But He did get the DMs from the basketball player.
Exactly. Why is he even arguing this? He is literally dying on this.
Under no universe, especially not for him. He is an extremely sensitive guy. He would probably have started crying after the first round of sex instead of going right to the next girl. Like, it is just not something that happened, and even if there is some elements of truth to the story, the whole thing is probably still not 100% accurate, and even still, the whole core of the video is the same. I was making fun of the guy. That would still stay entirely intact. Now, I'm getting carried away with Fresh and Fit here. The conversational topic here was about not correcting things that I've got wrong. And I've actually prided myself on being willing to accept when I'm wrong. I think that's one of the most important qualities a person can have, and something that is very unfortunately absent from most people.
Exactly. being able to admit when you're wrong is a hard thing to do, but it shows a lot of character if you do.
In the current day and age, where everyone has this complete reluctance and this like, ooh, yuckiness, I can't be wrong, I have to be perfect all the time attitude. I am more than willing to embrace and accept when I get things wrong, which is why I've made so many videos saying, I was wrong about this, got this wrong, this one was off, and adding more clarity to situations that I've covered when more information came out, or if something turned out to be fraudulent. I have done that for years, and I always have. In the case of Fresh and Fit, there is nothing to fucking correct. Now, I'm going a little out of order of our
Like, it's sad that he's had to defend this for the past however many minutes. Like, it's obvious it didn't happen.
conversation because we kept bouncing back and forth between certain things, fucking pinballing around, but I'm trying to connect all the points together. So we're going to talk about the Andrew Tate thing in a moment. That's something we talked about for a little bit because Tate is very clearly someone that is a heavy influence in Sneako's life. But before then, I do want to focus on a couple other things we talked about, and that's him victimizing himself constantly. This is something I've called out, and I wanted to hear his perspective on it. A lot of the things you critique the woke for are ones that you actively partake in. Victimization, that's a big thing with the woke, right? Constantly playing the victim. Do you recognize how often you play the victim in terms of like, I'm being canceled, everyone's against me, you go on your Discord to talk more about it, even this morning talking and naming and shaming people that you think have slighted you as like a cancellation. You do the exact same things. Like, you are also an SJW.
That's not victimizing. That's actively pointing out that literally every single...
That's literally being a social justice warrior. It's like, nobody asked you to defend them. Nobody's asked, like, who are you fighting for? Like...
Every streamer, the entire internet, all of YouTube, reacted to your video. I drop a response where I even apologize for going out of character and getting emotional. And then people... It's a million views in 12 hours. Nobody watches my rebuttal. Some of them react and making me die in an animation, but nobody wants to see what I have to say. I've become a caricature on YouTube rather than somebody who has something to say. I've become a meme because I am banned. That's not victimizing. That's actively pointing out how strong censorship is and how people on mainstream platforms can run with the narrative when you're not there.
The way you just justified it is a way many other people that you call playing the victim would also be able to justify things. The point is, when you are constantly whining and talking about how you're being attacked, it is still being victimized. I tried to point a mirror at him to point out that a lot of the things he criticizes others for is things that he actively does himself, and the one I focused on was victimization, because the way he
Like, I just feel like they're running in circles here, man.
justifies, playing the victim is justification people have used in the past that he calls out. So I was just trying to illustrate that it's not only hypocritical, but also just kind of silly that he, with all of his beliefs, still plays the victim and whines so much on Twitter. But that point wasn't really landing. We just kept kind of going in a circle about that one, so I don't want to focus on it too much here.
It's disingenuous, and now we're having the debate, but you would rather DM and go and make this about drama. Oh, let me go and react and do more drama content rather than have a conversation.
But I never did that.
You're doing it now.
But you have to remember that I didn't start any of this. You reacted to me telling jokes about your friend and then had your audience tell me, and that went on for like 2 weeks. And so eventually I explained why I don't like you. And then when I did that, that was the only time I planned on talking about you. You went on stream with your gun to threaten me, and you kept it up for 3 months, adding me.
I didn't do that to threaten you. That was a joke about clips. You actually think I was threatening you?
Whether or not you were
victimized, you're gonna think. Okay, you're gonna say victimized. And you're gonna say I'm actively trying to threaten you by saying a clips joke on a stream.
I don't think you were actually coming after my life. It doesn't.
He still doesn't even know the difference between clips and mags. I don't even own guns, and I know this.
Change the fact that for 3 months you continued to carry it on. I wasn't reacting to you. I wasn't even talking about you. This was a quick point that I think he did see my side on. He likes to make the claim that I was farming him for views and AdSense money, which couldn't be further from the truth. I never wanted to talk about Sneako. I never had plans of doing it. He kept poking and prodding me until I did. And then, once I did, he wasn't happy that I was so mean in my...
Right, he can't take it when the woke mob comes for him or whatever.
me in and says all I do is sit in my room playing video games on stream for 7 hours a day. So he is still guilty of the same thing he's accusing others of, which is a point I like to make. To get out of their comfort zone and start with something like the gym. The gym is a very social environment. It's an environment where everyone's working towards similar goals. You immediately surround yourself with like-minded people, and maybe you make a connection at the gym, maybe you can find a friend there, but even if you don't, you are out of your comfort zone in an environment where people are working for a similar goal. And that already changes your mindset as a person. You've given yourself a goal, you are acting on it, and now you're surrounded by people that are also in a similar boat. I think most importantly is I want people to be happy, and a lot of times they can't find that. So I don't think there's anything wrong with escapism, like watching someone play a game or even playing games yourself. Watching a sport, playing a sport yourself is also great. I play pickup basketball every Thursday. Getting out, talking, outside of a comfort zone, instead of sitting online making 20,000 tweets on the Sneako Twitter, I think is not productive. Replying to Sneako's Twitter, replying to my Twitter, none of it I think is productive. I've had Twitter since 2012. I've made 2,600 tweets, and half of those are just shit posts or a retweet. I think all of that, locking yourself inside as a recluse, living in this completely toxic landscape like Twitter, is the most detrimental thing for a person, and that extends to TikTok as well. I think TikTok has absolutely ruined people's brains in terms of what they can even stomach as an attention span. Having to have like Subway Surfer underneath a video of someone talking because you can't focus long enough, I think it's all a problem. So the things I talk about are usually geared towards either entertaining people for 8 minutes a day or whatever, or during a stream if they're already home from work and just need to unwind. I think all of that is fine. But I do always try and give some level of advice. My background, I don't know if you know, I'm a human science graduate with a concentration in exercise physiology. I believe very firmly in the mind-body connection in terms of strength building and muscle building. It's going to change your whole brain chemistry, and it will help improve the way you're looking at the world. So that's one of the big things I talk about, is even if you're 100% comfortable with your body, there is no reason not to at least try to make these kind of differences and change your perspective on things. It doesn't even have to be a body issue. It helps your mind overall. I am always
Exactly, and that's why I started working out, is because it's important just to stay in shape and keep your heart healthy. Because if your body's healthy, then your mind can be as well. Because they both play hand in hand.
always against people paying for advice from so-called gurus and professionals because you don't need it. The beauty of the internet is it is an unlimited repository of all of the human knowledge, just this compendium of every piece of information for every subject you could want. And you can access it for free. Under no circumstances do I ever advocate for someone paying up to $50 a month for advice they can freely find right now, even if it doesn't come with a built-in.
Gamers always have the argument, but then they never talk about how college is a waste of time and that people go into $50,000 to $100,000 in debt from people who aren't vetted millionaires. If you could pay $50 and talk to a vetted millionaire who has made money online in a way that they don't teach in school, $50 is a steal. People get really upset about this because you're paying somebody directly and you know who you're spending the money on. You don't get upset about college because you don't know the principal, you don't know the headmaster, you don't know the donors. They're nameless people behind a university.
No, you're selling your trust, and that doesn't mean that necessarily you're an expert on the topic, and you having millions of followers doesn't mean you're an expert on the topic. It just means a lot of people have faith in you. God, that's so awful. Let me go to what Charlie said next, because I don't even want to hear what he says the rest of this.
Gamer, using the hard G on me, gamer. And I think that might be because that's the only content he ever watched, but I really don't think I've ever made a secret what my beliefs are. I talk about them on stream, I talk about them in videos, I've never been fearful of it. And yet Sneako either pretends he never saw them, or maybe he just legitimately never saw them. But after explaining to him, he really seemed to change his whole tone about me as a person. I'm not a psychiatrist here or an expert in the field, but if I had to wager a guess, I think Sneako put an image of me in his head and attributed a whole ton of characteristics to that scarecrow that he put in there that just isn't actually me in reality, and that's who he attacks so vehemently. Whereas I do know a lot about Sneako, because there is a big difference between us in terms of our belief. It's all the fuck he talks about. It's the only thing that ever leaves his mouth, is always preaching about something or trying to make a big statement about their beliefs or their politics, whereas that's not me. The main thing I focus on is just entertainment. My videos are made purely for fun. It's just because I thought it'd be entertaining. It's a silly topic. It's something
Right.
fun, and that's it.
Like nobody's canceling you. You're just the clown of the minute, and everyone's making fun of you. Let's see what Sneako had. Like, let's see what they finish this up with.
That's a good use of time, and all the other streams like gaming and all that's terrible. So that got really muddy and messy, and there wasn't really any way we met somewhere and like had a perspective that made sense to each other, because his stream is just as much guilty of being a waste of time by his definition as my stream playing a game. It's still a form of entertainment and escapism, no matter how you spin it. I don't see how your message is somehow bolstered by spamming slurs, for example, like during that stream with the gun. I couldn't listen to you because you kept saying slurs. How is that necessarily helping make people happy or positive in any way, shape, or form? What does that do to contribute to your overall goal? Because it's not humor either, so it's not seeking truth through funny. It's literally just spamming slurs because you were mad at me.
It is, the reason that it's funny is because I'm on a platform that has free speech, and you're not bound by wokeness where you can't say certain words and you're labeled racist.
No, it's just like certain hate. There's guidelines to what you can and cannot do. You can't be a total dipshit. And obviously you're gonna be taken off the platform if you are. It's not nothing about being woke. It's just there's a level to this shit where it's like enough's enough.
You can think of. Now, looking back on it, I do regret not pushing a bit more on this point because there was a lot I wanted to say on it, but I just got so thrown off and blown away by his explanation of all of it that I totally forgot to expand. Because he really only says the F slur, the homophobic slur. And he says it doesn't encompass a whole belief system. Okay, well then why is it only that slur? I don't think I've ever heard him start spamming the N-word, hard R, or anything like that. And he's very open about how much he appreciates the Islamic faith. I've never heard him use any slurs against Muslims or anything like that. So if you feel so strongly that words don't necessarily indicate your actual beliefs, then why aren't you using more slurs? Why don't you drop more racist slurs during your stream? Why is the only one you use with the human trafficking, but none of the evidence is public?
You didn't look at all the victims and their allegations and how everything was exposed on WhatsApp, how they plan to make.
Oh my God, it's like how many people do you think are lying? Do you think the whole world is lying?
A Netflix movie out of this.
I've seen
was online. I think.
But then
See, if you cover current events, this is something you jump onto the pizza box, but you don't take the time to go and look at all the evidence that was debunked.
That's not true though, because
like, why do you spend the narrative laughing at somebody falsely in prison, but you can't go and just look at a couple screenshots and see that as garbage? You're laughing at the pizza box putting 2 people in jail because of what you saw on Twitter. When I say the word faggot or I say a slur, it's just a funny word to say. There's no consequences for that. Nobody goes to jail falsely.
I have looked at the evidence from both sides. I always do. I don't just go to these tribes and just assume everything on my side is right and everything on that side is wrong. I take information from all angles in order to find where I personally sit on this perspective.
And that's how you should be. That's how people should grow as individuals. And if you can't do that, then you're always going to stay in that same childish mindset.
On this situation. So, for the Tate brothers, being charged twice with human trafficking, while there is some shady shit from the victims, there is still real merit to some of the things that people were talking about, such as something you talked about as well, the taking of the passports from some of the women and getting there under the guise that they would be able to date them. Those are very odd, very peculiar things. So it's not like it's just, oh, all of that's wrong and we have to disregard all of it because this is here. There is, on both sides here, evidence that makes it a very complicated case, which is why it's gone on for so long, right? It's not one where I know the answer. They could be innocent, they could be guilty. I do think it's weird they've now been charged twice. There is some very odd things there because that's not exactly a light thing to come after someone for. And there is things that you have talked about.
It's wrong that people can go to jail for 4 months without any evidence or charges?
And I even
Look, after 1 or 2, allegations, maybe not. But after how many allegations did he get? Let me look at this up real quick. How many allegations towards Tate?
even outside of the
There's a
Tates.
lot of allegations.
I have said that in this country, where you can go to jail on suspicion of things without ever being charged. It's a problem. Yes, it is a problem.
Okay. I didn't see that video. I saw the video laughing about the pizza box putting him in jail. Did you make a video about that?
Yes, and I talked. Well, it's in that video where I say I don't know if he's guilty. I don't like if there's real victims here. Like, I would never celebrate someone being a human trafficker because there's victims. I wouldn't celebrate him being a human trafficker. That means there are real victims there. Even though I disagree with like his Hustlers University and a lot of the dumb shit he says, I wouldn't want him to be a human trafficker. That means there are real victims being in terrible situations. I did say that, and I don't know if he's guilty. I don't know if he's innocent. Nobody does right now, except for them and whatever's going on in Romania. The joking about a pizza box is things I make about anything that has craziness around it, like the Gwyneth Paltrow trial. There's so much silliness there that I talk about, but at the end of the day, I don't know who's innocent or guilty. I'm joking about the goofiness of things that have come up, right?
All right, I got to get going.
Now, he mentioned Andrew Tate, and this is another thing. Andrew Tate is very clearly an important figure in Sneako's life. And I made 2 videos covering Andrew Tate. One of them joking about Hustlers University and just a lot of the silly things that he's done, and the other when he got arrested. So, let's talk about that. I have always maintained that Andrew Tate is a very entertaining clown most of the time, but much like a lot of personalities online.
It's okay, you don't gotta explain yourself, Charlie. Let's see how we ended this.
And me as well during this.
It comes from a place of cope and of jealousy because they see people who are living a lifestyle opposite of them, and instead of admitting that there's a different path or admitting that they could have a good point, they try to bring down their character. That's the common theme I see with these people. So the intentions that I see from these people in the collage, they're not pure, they're not good. It's jealousy and it's hate.
And again, that is still something they could say about you as well. That's just...
He's just like a mirror reflecting himself. Like why did he even... This
One of the things I was...
wasn't even productive because it was just kind of him trying to get into his head, but at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to get into these people's heads because there's no rhyme or reason to it. They just think they're right because that's how they feel. And it's funny, they always talk about facts, not feelings, like you said earlier in this video, but that's literally all they do is their feelings over facts. They don't care about science. They don't care about logic. They don't care about morality. They just want what they feel is right, which isn't really what's right. And yeah, it's kind of pitiful. This is how, instead of like actually apologizing, admitting he's wrong, he just doubles down after kind of halfway apologizing. Like, what are you doing, dude? You're just making a fool out of yourself, and people like me are just gonna react to it because you're a clown, and it's obvious. Like, it's no wonder Penguinz0 is making fun of you. You can't even define what wokeness is, and yet here you are, always talking about it in every single thing you say. I don't know. I just thought this was a funny video. So after them talking for over an hour, it's really just Charlie calling him out and really putting him in this place on every single thing he has a problem with him about, which is all really accurate points. And Sneako just kind of doubles down, even though he apologized. I don't really understand why he apologized, probably from all of the people on the internet kind of pressuring him to feel that way, even though we really see clearly in the video that he doesn't. I don't think he really learned anything. I think he's probably just going to keep doubling down and going down this path of the woke mob virus, and I don't know really where he thinks he's going to go with that. Like, you're not going to become the next Trump, man. You're just a YouTuber, not even really a YouTuber anymore. I don't know. I just thought this was an interesting video, and I hope y'all stick around for another one. See y'all later.